Well, I was serving my time in COVID prison outside of Heathrow Airport in London. I came across an article in the National Catholic Reporter. It caught my attention immediately with that title. That's the same as this blog. It was written by a Franciscan priest, Father Daniel P. Horan, and the National Catholic Reporter, May 20th, 1922. He really had very good credentials to be talking about spirituality as an instructor, teacher, in many other ways. The thrust of the article was that the whole idea of being spiritual rather than being religious was attracting a lot of younger people, especially, who had become disillusioned with established religions. I thought this was very interesting because I have some friends that have gone through the same thing, and so I really read the article quite carefully. But what was interesting to me is after having read the article and deciding that I was going to write a blog about it, I went back to get Father Horan's credentials and so forth so I could cite him properly. What was interesting was that the letters to the editor from so many people, including many people who were anything but young, saying, thank goodness for this article. You know, it's about time we recognize that what this is really all about is a connection to God and not obeying a set of rules and regulations put down by some organization, which is what religion is. On my spiritual journey, and I call it a spiritual journey. This is not a religious blog at all. I hope you know that by now. Yes, I go to church. Yes, I practice the tenets of my faith. I'm grateful to my church for being there and carrying the message over all these centuries since the days of Christ. And I'm grateful for that. But I also know that all the rules and regulations and policies and procedures and do's and don'ts and all the rest of that stuff has turned off a lot of people. I mean, including young people. I have 4 kids. All 4 of them went to Catholic schools. Not a one of them is a practicing Catholic. And they have, I'm not saying they don't have faith, they do. But they don't, it's not within some established religious organization. I've got some very dear friends who I think are, from every sense of the word, are true Christians. I mean, they reach out to other people, they help other people, they're always there with a kind word and a kind gesture and a kind thought. They're just great people. But they don't go to church because they got turned off by church. I'll give you another example. My father, now I'm not going to tell you my father was a church-going man. He never was. He never had much use for churches. He thought most people that went to church were hypocrites because they'd go and talk one thing and then go do something else, do the contrary during the week. But my dad was a really neat guy, and you know, he never met anybody he didn't like. He was a very positive person. He saw good in everybody and everything. And I can remember the day he died, I talked to him on the phone because he was down in Florida and I was up in Wisconsin. And I asked him, I said, Dad, you're going to be with God today. And I was convinced of that. He may not have gone to church, but I was convinced by the kind of life he lived that he would be with God that day. And I said, when you're with God, I said, put in a good word for me. And I meant that. And I'll tell you this, my dad has and continues to, after all these years, be there for me, interceding for me, helping me see my way through life and helping me with God. So, and I can remember the minister. There was a small church right in back of where my folks lived, down in Colony Cove, outside of Bradenton. And the minister of that church, at the service, he said that he gave the eulogy. And he said, you know, I knew Jim very well. We had lots and lots of conversations, he said. He never came to my church. But he said, I have no doubt that Jim is with God now because of the kind of life he lived. I really believe that being spiritual is a whole different ballgame than being religious. And I'm not saying it's one or the other. You can be spiritual and be religious. I think a lot of churches today are recognizing that, and they're changing their services, and they're changing their focus. And they are much more about building relationships with God than they are all the rules and regulations and policies and procedures that other religions have stressed all these years. And they're attracting people. I had a young man, they're trimming trees out in front of our house, and the young man in charge of the crew and I were talking. But he said that he went to a church, and he said the church we were as a small church, and it was too small for us. He said we had to have a larger church because so many people were coming. Because he said there is a community there. There are people, we come together and we share a relationship with God. It's really neat. It really is neat. And the people that I know that really have a spiritual basis like that really stress their relationship with God a lot more than they do being a member of the church. So, as for me, I'm going to continue to do both. I'm going to work on my spiritual program. I'm going to work on my growth, my relationship with God, as I understand Him, and as I particularly feel the strength of the Holy Spirit. And incidentally, I have to say Pentecost is coming up this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. We call it Red Sunday, and we celebrate Pentecost, the coming of the Holy Spirit. So anyway, that's my spiritual journey. I'm pleased that this priest, a Franciscan priest, who operates out of love, obviously, not out of rules, saw the need to put that article in the National Catholic Reporter, and I'm pleased to see how many people support him. That's about it for today. I hope you have a great and blessed Pentecost, and that the Spirit be with you as you continue your own spiritual journey. Thanks much. Talk to you next time.